I'm Tricia Reust. Chroma has introduced some new painting mediums, and I'm thrilled to be able to show you how my painting practice has been extended through the use of these mediums. There's the thick painting medium, middle medium, and thin, which all refer to the consistency of the mediums in respect to their relationship to the regular acrylics. Then there is a brand new texture medium, heavy gel satin. And lastly, we'll talk about the new holding medium, which is used for free flow and Joe Sonia, etc., to actually increase the thickness of those paints. The thick painting medium is exactly the same consistency as the Atelier interactive acrylic paints. So you can mix it in with your paint, and what it does is it actually extends the time that the paint stays wet. So I am really enjoying extended painting sessions where I can paint larger canvases such as this one before you here, and I can paint in one session a whole background that stays wet, and I can fiddle around with color, I can change color, I can add color. So this whole background to this acrylic was begun with the blue, then I was able to add in the yellow, then the reds and the terracottas, and this whole background was painted in the one session with this thick painting medium. Previously, say for example on this area here, previous to the thick painting medium, I would have had to coat the whole background with a layer of the clear painting medium in order for me to add the acrylic and keep that acrylic wet so that I could blend different colors into it. With this new thick medium, I can mix my colors and I can place a whole layer of graduated color, keeping it wet so I can fiddle with it and move it around exactly the same as if I was painting in oil. The thing with the thick medium is you should probably stick to a half and half ratio of addition. So however much paint you put out, the exact amount of thick medium is what you would mix into that. So I'm going to do a graduated painted background from a pale blue into a lovely mauve and coming to a really pale color towards the end. So this is going to stay beautifully thick and wet for me to blend and paint this whole area. You can see how smoothly and beautifully this paint is moving onto this dry canvas. So I've got a really lovely beginning of blue. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of quinacridone magenta, a little more of the cerulean blue and more white, and create a beautiful mauve that I can blend in. This is impossible to do with regular acrylics in our area here in Australia because it would dry out so fast. So I'm just going to make a lovely mauve, mix that medium all through. You can see how the medium has not affected the consistency of the paint. So the paint is, the mixture is just as thin, just as exactly the same as if the paint had come straight out of the tube. So I'll put that on, and now I can blend that with that lovely paint that is still moist and flexible because of the addition of the thick medium. I'm just going to smooth that down, and I'm going to be able to get a beautiful, lovely blended movement of the blue into that mauve. Now while that is still lovely and flexible, I'm going to add straight white. The thing about adding mediums into your paint is that you are left with the intensity of the pigment, whereas if you use water to move your paint around, what happens is the strength and integrity of your pigment is weakened. So when you use a medium, you retain the intensity and the strength, so I can make a really beautiful blended merging of these colors. And that lovely softness that you get is reminiscent of the movement of oil paint. Now for the edges, to make them merge into the rest of the painting, I'm going to get some paper towel and I'm just going to put pure thick medium onto my paper towel, and then I'm just going to softly blur the edge of that. See how that is just softening the edge and just getting a really lovely blending and merging with the underlying color. And that's a beautiful blended progression of paint with the addition of our thick medium. Quite often after I've done a painting session or a demonstration, I have paint left over on my palette, and because the thick medium is exactly the same consistency as our paint, I just scrape it straight into my grey jar, and there is paint in this grey jar from 15 years of scrapings. Stir it up and you can see that this is quite thin, because traditionally I have had to keep my grey paint pliable through the use of clear painting medium. What I'll be able to do now with the thick painting medium is add thick painting medium into my leftover paint, and I'll be able to store my leftover grey in the same consistency as my regular paint. Middle medium is a bit lower in consistency than our regular Atelier paint, so it's a little more runny than what we just saw with the thick medium, so it's perfect for stamping and stenciling. So the reason we need to add medium to our paint for stamping and stenciling is we need the paint a little thinner than it is when it comes straight out of the tube, plus we need to retain the intensity of it so that when we use it for stamping and stenciling, that lovely intensity of color will still come through in the stamp or in the stencil. I'm using a roller, a sponge roller, because I am actually going to run the roller through the stencil, not use a brush. So you roll your paint out till it's a beautiful even consistency. We'll put our stencil here and then just roll that. That paint is so beautifully runny but deeply intense, so that stencil is going to read as a beautiful strong motif. And then for stamping, and will be read whether I put more layers over this or not. Lovely intense color. Our middle medium is also used for glazing. I previously have used the clear painting medium, but the middle medium is a little more thick than our clear painting medium. So to make a beautiful glaze, I can have a stronger glaze immediately using my middle medium than when I used the clear painting medium. If I wanted a really strong glaze, I would have to put one glaze on and then wait for it to dry. That is beautiful and intense, and I'll just show you how that's going to go over a larger painting. So there are areas in this painting. This painting has had cerulean blue, and then the mauve here was a mixture of cerulean blue and magenta, quinacridone magenta. So for me to bring up the intensity around here, adding my quinacridone magenta is going to harmonize quite beautifully with the colors already in here, because the washes were comprised of the quinacridone and blue. So you can see how beautifully even and smoothly that has glided on as a glaze. The other thing about middle medium, if you have paint that has been hanging around for a bit, say an old tube, particularly your earth colors, or you have a jar of paint, a tub of paint that's been hanging around for a bit and it's really quite thick and it's lost its moisture. Remember, you never really waste your money by spending your money on really good quality pigments. Now that is really heavy and it has thickened with age. What you can do with your middle medium is rejuvenate, and because it is thick, when you finish rejuvenating that, it will be the same consistency as the original paint. So you just work and work and work your middle medium into that old thickened paint, and you can see that pigment being released, and the medium is mixing with the original binder and the original polymer that created the yellow ochre in the first place, and you have workable paint ready to go again. The same as if you have an old tub of paint, and you can see red gold traditionally thickens up over time. Add a little layer of your middle medium to that and stir that in, and make sure you get right onto the bottom of your old jar of paint, and that paint will be rejuvenated and ready to use again. Like I said, if you spend and invest on artist quality materials, you just can't lose. So our thin medium is just the ticket for calligraphic lines and thin applications of your acrylic. It's always a mistake to use water when you want to spread your acrylic paint and make it more fluid, because water will break down and weaken the effect of your pigment, whereas your mediums, they suspend the pigment so you don't lose any strength or integrity of the paint medium. So if I want to make lovely thin calligraphic lines, I just mix in my acrylic and I can make them fatter and thinner. Oh, it's just beautiful, this medium. And I'll just show you where on this large painting again, this is what has been done for all these fine calligraphic lines on the background trees. It's all the drawing aspect of the features in the background. Another really lovely thing about the thin medium is for these really large areas of linear work on the fencing in this, I actually used a larger applicator bottle, and I mixed it up, the Payne's Grey with the thin medium, until it was the way I wanted it, and then I just was able to just actually draw with the applicator bottle. After that one use, I cleaned it all out, put Glad Wrap on to preserve it. The use of applicator bottles also enables a beautiful free-flowing effect when you want to work on something like Yupo paper. So Yupo paper has got a really shiny surface that resists soaking the paint up. So what I've got here are 3 applicator bottles, and I actually mixed the cobalt turquoise light, the phthalo turquoise and the red gold in these applicator bottles about 3 weeks ago, and they're still a little bit of shaking and they're still beautifully strong, and I can use them. So to make one up in an applicator bottle, you just put your paint in. So I'm using a naphthol red light here. Add your thin medium, just a little bit at a time, so that it has enough strength to really dissolve all that paint. And to work out if your paint is fluid enough for the purpose that you want, you just run a little bit. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, look at that. Okay, I've got my Yupo paper here, so I want to get some fluid, free flow things happening. Bit of red gold up through here. I'm just going to move that Yupo paper around, get some things happening there. Now, if we'd tried this using water with our paint, the strength of that pigment is just coming right through. And of course you can then attack it with brushes or tools or whatever you wish. But underneath here I just have a previous work where that same effect I did with the cobalt turquoise light, the red gold and the phthalo turquoise, where I pushed them around, let them wiggle around and move around by, moving the paper around. After that was dry, I just got black ink and drew up the 2 ducks, and then put a little bit of white free flow into the ducks, and then I put white free flow onto a sponge and I just ran it right across the back of that. So see the intensity of this color? Well, this used to be that intense, but I wanted to get a sense of distance of the water going in the background, and all that beautiful flowing effect was possible because the paint was mixed with the thin medium and the intensity of the color was retained because you used the medium and not water. The other really lovely thing, while we're talking about the intensity of the color, we'll just get a piece of watercolor paper, and I'll put some water, clean water. We'll just make some lovely clean water stripes and maybe a bit of a shape here, and you're going to be able to see, putting that color in, the intensity of that compared to using other colors for a watercolor effect just is really apparent. How gorgeously that thin medium allows you to have some beautiful fluid watercolory effects with your regular Atelier acrylic. The heavy gel satin is fantastic. The previous gels that we've had are your regular gel, which is a gloss, and this is a softer gel that dries with a really high gloss, and the heavier gel, which sat still longer, also dried with a really high gloss. So I can do everything with the heavy gel satin that I used to do with the other gels, but now that we've got the extra benefit of the beautiful almost matte surface finish, it just expands so much how we can use it and deal with it. The first thing people might want to know is when we used to mix our transparent colors into our gels, when they dry we have that beautiful deep effect where it looks like we're looking through layers. Well, this is ultramarine with heavy gel gloss dried. This is the same ultramarine with the new heavy gel satin, and you can see that lovely matte finish, so you can still extend how you use your mediums and your paints for further effects. I just wanted to show you when you mix your transparent colors. Now this is with the regular heavy gel gloss that we used to have, and mixing it with our new heavy gel satin, it looks completely different. You can see that it's a ecru off-white color, and it looks more like, almost like a grouting. So we mix that in till we get a beautiful uniform consistency, and you see how that looks really quite pale, just so that you know that when that dries, it's going to revert to the deep character of the ultramarine pigment. Same thing when we mix our paint in with the gloss gel. It looks really pale, whiter tinted, but when that dries, it's going to revert to the deep pigment of our ultramarine. So both of these gels can be utilized with our transparent colors for that gorgeous, deep, almost translucent effect in certain areas of our painting. So we can still use our heavy gel satin for all of the different ways that we apply texture. As usual, you can put it through a shape and it will retain the shape of that plastic doily. We can impress it with different tools and it will retain the shape. And we can also use it for collage. If we wanted to collage heavier elements, we used to use our heavy gel gloss or regular gel gloss, because a heavier element won't adhere to the canvas or the paper with just binder medium. So these shells are going to adhere to the surface now, the same as with the gel gloss, with the added beauty that now this is going to dry with a beautiful matte finish. So particularly if I wanted that to look like sand, I just impress it with a towel. Those shells are now going to be adhered to the canvas or whatever I've done, and the gel retains a feeling of sand, so that for a coastal or a seascape or something, that's the perfect way for you to add collage elements, knowing that you're going to have a beautiful matte finish instead of being subject to the high gloss finish which previously was only available to us. This painting here is a revamped older work. It had texture on it, and I gessoed the old painting. All these areas here have been reworked with a brand new beautiful rhythm because I wanted to create a brand new painting. All I had to do was put that heavy gel satin, and I didn't want gloss, I wanted a matte, and I've been able to create a brand new painting from an old surface solely because of the heavy gel gloss. We're thinking about the things that we do with our heavy gel gloss. That includes photo transfer. Photo transfer is when you have a photocopy and you want to transfer the image to a canvas. Even though this heavy gel satin does not look transparent, it is perfectly adaptable to the process of our photo transfer. So we place a layer of the heavy gel satin on the surface of our canvas. We place a layer on the surface of our photocopy, covering it all with an even layer. Place them on the canvas. You can use a brayer to really imprint, but I'm quite happy to use any tool that I have that's got a smooth base. I usually leave it overnight to ensure that the transfer of the ink from the photocopy has been successful to the medium. So here's one that was done last night. So to release that image, we just get it wet the paper and rub the paper until all that paper comes off, and you'll be left with just the image on the canvas. Now, using the heavy gel satin means that you will not attain a bright white behind your image, so you have to be selective about what images you're going to be using. So I would continue to peel away the paper, and you can see that lovely off-white color behind that tree, and you keep working until all the paper is gone. So here's one of people walking in Paris, and all the paper has been removed. So this image, photo transferred onto the canvas, is now ready. You can draw over it, you can paint it, you can use ink, you can stain it, you can use color pencils. You can see the bright white of the canvas is now a lovely off-white. And here's one that has been completed using a photocopy of a dog, and then collage has been added, texture has been added to create a scene with the photo transferred image. Holding medium has been manufactured specifically for use with Free Flow and Jo Sonja acrylic, and what it does is it holds the paint and brings it up to the consistency of your regular acrylic, whereas of course your Free Flow, its characteristic is that it's really quite flows lyrically and freely, and Jo Sonja is a lot thinner than your regular acrylic. So here we can see this is light red oxide Free Flow that's been mixed with the holding medium, and this is the Free Flow without anything. This is Jo Sonja's gold that's been mixed with the holding medium, and this is Jo Sonja without it. And after I painted them, I held them up, and that's how much the holding medium is able to create a consistency that like normal acrylic. The reason I would do it, use the Free Flow instead of regular acrylic, is I prefer to use Free Flow in my drawings rather than gouache. If I was to use gouache, I would not be able to place a further wet layer over top of the gouache when I'm drawing, because the gouache would wake up when it was hit with any other wet media. The Free Flow has got a beautiful element in it that makes it dry quite flat and matte like gouache, but because it's acrylic, it actually dries with a stable surface over which I can apply more wet media if I wish. So that's the Free Flow applied with a palette knife on watercolor paper. By the time I add 2 more colors to this, you'll be able to see a beautiful matte finish over which I can draw. You can see the quality of the holding medium. It sits right up. Mix that holding medium into the light red oxide Free Flow. This Free Flow is just gliding over the watercolor paper, and I just want to show how you can also use a sponge and some white. I use holding medium and free flow white quite often because I love the chalkiness of it, and I love to stop up and mellow areas of drawings, and I can put this over anything in my drawings. This is prepared now for a drawing, but if I decide later that I want more colour, I can put a glaze over that, I can put a wash over it, and this is going to stay stable and secure. It's not going to wake up and mix with a top layer of a wet medium. Other than preparing papers for drawing, like with this watercolour piece here, I've also used the holding medium and free flow to repair a drawing. This was a drawing that was done as a demonstration. It's on watercolour paper. Laid down in the back is a regular acrylic as washes in an abstract pattern, and then over the top I've done the drawing in charcoal and white pastel of the tree. Previous to this there was a fence, a bit of a path and more trees, and I decided I didn't want that. I wanted a line of cattle. There's a faint pink that you can see there, and you can see it's very flat, very matte. So I mixed the light red ochre and white with the holding medium, and then painted it everywhere where I wanted that line of cattle, waited for it to dry, and then drew the cattle. And it fits quite well into the rest of the surface because it has dried so gorgeous and flat. So if I want to, say I want to do a drawing over top of a mixed media piece of paper, this piece of paper has been treated with acrylic and various textures and collage and treatments and techniques, but I've decided that I want to draw a chook, so I have placed white free flow with holding medium into a basic shape because I want to be able to draw over it, and the slick surface of the collage and the areas of treatment with the regular acrylic would be too slick. There's no tooth there to hang on to the drawing. What I've done is I've created tooth with the addition of the white free flow and the holding medium, so I can now draw over this. This is a pastel pencil. I can draw with graphite. Graphite particularly goes over the free flow beautifully. All that lovely shadow and that gorgeous chook. You can see how beautifully that's just going over it. And charcoal too. Charcoal loves, look at that, just loves the surface created with free flow and the holding medium. So I can just continue to draw over this area of tooth that I have re-added into this drawing. So that's pastel, charcoal and graphite, which you can see just moves beautifully over the surface of the free flow mixed with the holding medium to create tooth for a drawing. With Joe Sonia is runnier than, or more free flowing than regular acrylic, but thicker than free flow. So you can make your Joe Sonia just as exactly the same consistency as your regular acrylic with the addition of your holding medium. And I just want to show you, for example, I have used regular Joe Sonia around the edge of this miniature canvas to sort of finish it off. And it looks quite flat and thin, and actually it took 3 or 4 layers. I just want to show you on this little canvas the difference when you add holding medium to your Joe Sonia, and it does not weaken the strength of the pigment. The pigment still stays intense and strong. What you're affecting is the consistency of the paint. So this is lovely and thick now. so that I will be able to coat the outside of this little canvas with one layer, and I'll get really lovely gold trim on the little canvas. I hope you've enjoyed seeing the different ways you can utilize these 5 new mediums from Chroma, and I hope you feel encouraged to do so from what you've seen. Thank you.